body. So we're going to go ahead and carve another face today. So we're going to go ahead and start with the eyebrow forehead line. I'm using a flame burr. Make a solid cut and then feather that in, smoothing those edges over all the way around. Now we're going to go ahead and roughen the nose and the nostrils. Again, this little nostril cut is the deepest, so we're going to go ahead and take and spend a little bit of time in there, but you got to be careful not to hold your blade too long in that in those crevices, because that's one quick way of burning up your rotary tool's flex shaft. It's better to make multiple passes and feather after the fact. So now we're roughing the eyes, and we're gonna feather that cheek. Going across that nose, watching that nostril there. This is the bottom of the cheekbone. Cut and feather. And now we're going to go ahead and take and do the chin. So this is how I make faces. What techniques do you use to get your faces to stick out? Leave comments in the below underneath the video, and I'd like to see how you guys do your carvings. This is the new suction table, or downdraft table. Still having a little bit of getting used to it here. It is pulling all the dust down onto the table, and there's actually a 4-inch tube that goes underneath the table to pull it into a shop vac. So back to working that eye, doing the eye cavity, and then blending it into the cheek and under the nose, under the chin, for the chin. Rounding the nose here, and taking that top of that nose and blending it into the forehead. Rounding that forehead, making it nice and round. And we're going to smooth out that nose. You gotta make sure that you take out any major bumps in that nose. Now we're gonna go ahead right underneath the lip, above the chin, between the chin and the lip, and we're gonna go ahead and define that chin. For me, the chin is one of the prominent features, so I always have that real large chin. As you can see, the nose is really starting to pop off that block there, and you can see the eye cavity over there. We straighten that and redefine that cavity. I'm going from a real deep eye cavity to a peak at the cheekbone. Now I'm going to make it symmetrical on the secondary side. Make that cut and feather. Now remember, like I said, the nostrils, where the nostrils are going to be the deepest part of the cut. Find that chin. Again, you gotta be very careful when you're cutting that channel there. You do not want your burr to get stuck, because that is the one way that would destroy your flex shaft. I had to add a new hole to my downdraft table in the middle to get all those larger pieces. This was the first rendition of this downdraft table. Currently a work in progress. Like everything in a shop, shops are constantly in flux. Work on that infrastructure. Now back to the carving here. We're again doing the eye and blending into the cheek and underneath the nostrils. Smoothing out that nose and blending it into the cheek. Forehead and tie that forehead into the cheek, or excuse me, into the nose. To the nose. Now I created a little ridge there, so I'm gonna go ahead and smooth that ridge out by feathering that nose. Going from the bridge of the nose down the length of the nose, just feathering it out, and taking a little bit off. As you notice, I didn't change speeds of the actual rotary tool, but I am taking a little cuts, nice and shallow. It takes about an average for an hour for me to do these carvings. So here you see me taking and removing a little bit of the lip, smoothing that out. Again, I'm not taking off a lot of material, just smoothing out the main part of the lip so that way it's still prominent and proud of the face. But we're going to make it blend in a little bit, so that way we can go ahead and tie it into the face. We don't want that lip to take and be the prominent feature. It should just subtly pop off that face. blending that face. Sorry about the hat. I'm gonna have to go ahead and remember to remove my hat when I take and do these videos. And we're blended that nose in. Make sure we don't take the nostrils off. Again, sorry about the hat. We're gonna go ahead and in future videos I'll make sure I don't wear a hat when I'm filming. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and clean up here. We want to go ahead and keep our area nice and clean. Want to keep that work area as clean as possible so it makes it easier to see what you're working on. Okay, so we got a real rough face. So now it's time to change that burr out. Okay, this is a long cone shape. What we're going to do is smooth this out. It's just smoothing out that material. Takes in, it's a long cylinder with a rounded top. Also called a taper burr. We're just using that to kind of smooth out the tool marks as much as possible and make sure that everything is nice and even. Again, the trick is not to remove a lot of material and try not to gouge the material with this burr, which is sometimes a lot easier said than done because it likes to dig and catch. So we need to make sure that we keep it completely parallel to the, perpendicular to the material as it's cutting. We don't want it to gouge the material, take chunks out of our face. Okay, I'm checking out the symmetry now. Constantly gotta check the symmetry of these faces. I don't want a face to be completely symmetrical because the actual human face is not completely symmetrical. Now I'm working on the eyes here. But I want it to be somewhat symmetrical. I don't want, big differences like, 2-3 inches difference or anything weird like that. But, a few centimeters off, that happens in nature. So we want it to look as natural as possible. And carved out the eyes a little bit, rounded up. And now we're taking and using that burr to go nice and slow. Whenever you're cutting, you want to use your pinky or your thumb to hold a kind of an anchor point. That way you don't let that burr slip. Even though I'm wearing a glove on my non-cutting hands, I don't want that burr to run into that glove because that will tear you up. Okay, back to feathering. Just adding some more detail. Okay, time to change burrs again. Sorry, that right before I change burrs here, I gotta take and clean my glasses because it gets kind of sweaty with those all those burrs there. So, all right, now we're gonna change burrs. Okay, this is actually a cylinder detail burr. So it's actually a cylinder. It looks like a flat drill bit. And right now I'm actually carving the lips and doing some of the fine detail work. Nostrils. This is where you gotta be very careful not to blow out those nostrils when you're carving those in. Now I'm doing the eyes. Again, you gotta be very careful because if you take off too much material, it's a lot harder to take and put it back than take it off. So you gotta be very delicate. Slow your process down. As you notice, I didn't change the speed of the rotary tool, but I did I'm being very delicate on where I'm putting my tools burr. I'm just slowly removing material to shape the eye. Now I'm shaping the bags underneath the eye a little bit. And you gotta keep that area nice and clean. Free of dust. Just gonna go and shape that eye and blend. And eyes are the hardest part for me. They just do not want to look like open eyes. I tend to do more sleepy eyes than open eyes. Alright, now we got the burr and the detail done. We're going to go ahead and start the sanding. So I start with these brown sanders here. I believe it's 120 grit. It's actually Scotch-Brite, which is the same thing that's on the back of your sponge in the kitchen. So you want to go ahead and do a nice pass over. It's gonna eat that Scotch-Brite up pretty quick. So the trick is not to let it get too far gone before you change Scotch-Brite pads. As you can see, I let it go a little too far there. I'm going to put another brown one on. Do the other side of the nose and the face. As you can see, it's just pulling that dust right off. So it's smoothing out all the tool marks, making that face nice and smooth. So that way it can take a finish. And it comes in a set of 5 tan, green, red, black, and gray. Gray and black. I don't run through the gamut every time. Usually I do at least tan and green, and then I finish up with either gray or black. The black is 400 grit. So it's very fine detail. As that you can see, you just kind of rub it down. You want to. This is where I do slow down the rotary tool a little bit, because otherwise you will get burns on your piece. And you also want to make sure you get, you know, the back and the sides and top and bottom of your piece, so that way it is all nice and ready for finishing. But again, you need to be careful not to burn, you know, the wood with this Scotch-Brite. It will burn right into that wood. So one of the comments I got last video was, I was asked, well, why do I use the Scotch-Brite over the over like a sanding sandpaper or rotary sandpaper burr? And the reason is because the Scotch-Brite can get into those fine details really easily. Switch to the red one here, which is about it should be about 220. And the higher the grit, the easier it burns. So you want to be very careful when you get to the black and gray. So here I'm going to the gray here. As far as I'm going to go with the Scotch-Brite, because it's nice and smooth. So we're going to dust off our area here, and our piece is about ready for finishing. So we're just going to clean it up, and there we go. That's our piece. Nice, ready for finish, nice and smooth.